Hello everyone, I am here to talk to you about Esther Phillips. She's one of my favourite sort of blues female singers. She actually did a range of music, blues, soul, and also jazz, disco. And this is her biggest one. Footnotes in history rather than a Queen of Soul. But could you believe that even the Queen of Soul surrendered her Grammy Award to Esther Phillips? Esther went on to be nominated 2 more times, and subtle, nuanced sounds. She had all the grace of Minnie Riperton, yet all the vocal skill of scat and staccato singing that was present in Ella Fitzgerald, a legend of jazz in the early 20th century. Esther's style is also rooted in New Orleans jazz, just like all the greats like Ella Fitzgerald and Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong. Yet she was able to be one of the linchpins of modern music at the same time. She was a genius artist who ushered in modern music and global culture in the 21st century. In fact, she was one of the first to be nominated in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame back in the mid-1980s. She never left her New Orleans roots, not even when recording disco music. And that's an art very few could really do well, was combine something so old school like, New Orleans jazz with disco music. The song to whom Aretha Franklin surrendered her Grammy was Set Me Free, ironically. A song that she'd recorded years earlier, but it ended up being on her 1972 performance album, arguably her greatest modern blues effort. The Queen of Soul, of all people, saw the greatness that was Esther Phillips. That is, Esther's unerring ability to stir the soul, leaving even the Queen of Soul defenseless in competition. It all started back in Christmas Day of 1954. Her professional career started on that fateful day. She performed shows at the City Auditorium. She was backstage there with Johnny Ace, Big Mama Thornton, and her band. And she stayed there on that circuit for about 8 years. She played small clubs around Lexington, where she lived. Ironically, one of her greatest gigs was actually at the Kentucky Addiction Hospital. And I say there is irony here, that's for sure, because she herself began to rely on such intervention. In fact, throughout her entire life, she battled with addiction. Yet, unlike other addicts, she always put herself last and put the needs of her fans, her record companies, and everyone, A&R execs, she put them first, putting her music first, and they never spared any money to make her records sound the best that they could possibly sound. By 1962, she had already cleaned up a little for the first time and was ready to do a comeback, although that was really the first launching of her professional career, of her recording career in fact, and it was aided by none other than Kenny Rogers, whose brother owned the label Lennox Records. And her collaborations were just as historic as every other facet of her career. That is, from the heyday of the early to mid-60s right through to the mid-1970s. Fast forward, that is, to a heyday, which is the mid-1960s to the mid-1970s. And she collaborates with none other than Gil-Scott quite early on, from the song "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." Came her biggest hit in 1975. What a difference a day makes. On July 9th, 1975, What a Difference a Day Makes comes out. And it charts instantly. It would reach number 10 in the US and number 20 in the pop charts. 19 in R&B chart. And it was the first time she had a pop top 10 since Release Me number 1. It hit number 1 in 1962. Not exactly a day, but more like a decade. What a difference a decade made in the career of Esther Phillips. We go briefly through the albums. This is the earliest album I've got. That's the cover of the Beatles, And I Love Her. She does And I Love Him. This is very Etta James, but more the light, ballady side of Etta James. She doesn't focus a lot on the blues side of the music yet. That was in the 70s. Etta James was far more bluesier. However, she does some very remarkable cover versions, I must add. On top of And I Love Him, she also does The Girl from Ipanema, to a boy, from a woman's point of view. But the sophistication, I don't think Jobim even saw it when he wrote the song himself. There's a sophistication that is just amazing with all the wind instruments in it. It's an extraordinary jazz version of that song. And yeah, And I Love Him also, very good crooner track, but using her beautiful, innocent voice. That's what I love. That's the undeniable good thing about Esther Phillips. She has this innocence in her voice, perhaps because she's been singing since she was 13, when she was still little Esther, but with all the sophistication and all the the great skill, the staccato that she also brings in from time to time, like Ella Fitzgerald. She has all that dexterity in her voice. It's just amazing. Then we move to the 70s. Now she's much more blues-based. If you were to buy one album, I'd say start with this one. This is, I think, the one I started with as well. I love this album. Very 70s. And then this is her big hit. This album is a disco record because this is 1975, the year of the disco explosion. And hello Maggie, you can hear Maggie, my cat just down here. And all the blues credentials are here, along with her disco music. And it's like even a rock fan could listen to this. Hey Maggie, here's Maggie. What are you doing? So even a rock fan could listen to this. None of her blues credentials are lost on disco. I love the song What a Difference a Day Makes. That's probably my favourite, and you can hear it now. I think the instrumental version is playing now. But all of it, you can listen to this from start to finish, and it just transports you to another time. Like, they certainly don't make them sound like that anymore. There's a certain echo, which I'm pretty sure they go out of their way to actually cut it out. But here, it just makes this remarkable effect. Then her next album that I have is Capricorn Princess. More of the same, a bit lighter disco here. And then finally, her 1977 album. It's the last album I've got, but she kept going to 1980. This is also with all her albums from 1975 have the great American jazz guitarist Beck. She does a cover of Unforgettable and Going Out of My Head. Little Anthony and the Imperials did that in the mid-60s. Amazing 70s renditions and full rock guitar and good solid blues. Never gets lost on her, even when doing these amazing like ballads like Unforgettable or these great standards, soul standards like Going Out of My Head. Oh, and also Fever, that great jazz song from the early 20th century, very well known. I also got this 1990 compilation, and one of my favorite things about this comp, I had no idea, The liner notes is actually written by someone who would work with her in the studio, a producer of her, and he was driven to write these liner notes because he recalls just 6 years earlier, before she died, just before she died, that she called him after trying to call everyone else who worked with her, but no one seemed to have the same number anymore except this guy. And he got a call out of the blue, and she really felt like reminiscing about the old days. It's almost like she knew she was going to die. And that's exactly what they did. They reminisced about the old days, and it helped him remember a lot of the facts that he states in the liner notes. And of course, she died in approximately middle of 1984. Born in 1935, she was still only 48 years old. She was born in the same year as Elvis Presley. There's some really amazing facts that he recalls here. That she was very hard to work with, of course, because of her drug addiction, and yet she was also very, very loyal to her record company and all her colleagues, and really did everything for the music. That her life was coloured by a succession of highs and lows, as you could understand with someone battling drug addiction. Dealing also with the hardening of record companies in the 1970s when she was released from her contract just because her sales numbers were low. But of course, lucky for her, she did go to the CTI label, and she did, I think, some of her best work in the early 70s on that label, early to mid 70s. But it must be very hard to be kicked off a label after being there for about 10 years, and only because your sales numbers weren't that good, weren't good enough. She was also at the brunt of economic rationalisation, where the music business would fire you all of a sudden and release you from your contract just for low sales numbers after many years. She'd already been on CTI label, I think, for about 8 years or something when she was released, and her career was already, because she'd been going since the 40s when she was just 13, 1949. So she had already been going for about 30 years when they kicked her off. Her current music business really became more about business and a little less about the music. So it recounts how she became very insecure, and yeah, very sad. Yeah, I also love how they include Mr. Bojangles, which is a song, a very well-known song. Neil Diamond did it, and a few other artists did it before him. Not very well-known artists, but the song is very well-known. She covered it, but not released until this 1990 compilation. I love it. One of my favourite songs of all time. Written by a country artist. Don't ask me the name, I can't remember. Some dirt band or something, I can't remember. But a witty dirt band, very strange name. One of those kinds of bands. Yeah, so that's about all I have to say about Esther Phillips. She is really a quiet queen of soul. Thank you for listening to my video, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video.